Good day, everybody, and welcome to today's latest episode on my YouTube video series. And today we're going to talk about the Special Economic Zone, Johor, Singapore. Let's discuss this topic. And as per usual, let's start with a video introducing myself.
Director of Alpha Marketing,
Ryan speaking in Skandar, Malaysia. So my name is Ryan. Nama saya Ryan.
6,000 incoming supply in Johor. This is
I am writing. Thank you for attending today's presentation on Skandar, Malaysia.
Hi, my name is Ryan Khoo, and I'm a Malaysian, but I'm also a Singapore PR. I've been in Singapore since 2009. I'm a property investor. I'm also a speaker on real estate topics and also retirement topics, especially between Johor and Singapore. And as if you see here on this slide, I used to speak for Property Guru, for iProperty, for ST Property, HProp. I used to write articles for HProp as well. Most people know me as a person who speaks quite fondly, quite pro Johor Bahru and Iskandar, Malaysia, especially in real estate investment. Okay, so I'm also a real estate agent with ERA both in Singapore and Malaysia. So today's topic is about the Special Economic Zone, right, which is something that came on the news recently, right? And what happened was that on the 7th and 8th of January, which was on basically earlier this week, right? Both the Prime Minister of Singapore, Lawrence Wong, and the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim, they signed a agreement on the Special Economic Zone. Now, what is the Special Economic Zone, right? I think most people still have some idea, but don't really have a full idea what a Special Economic Zone is, right? And this thing has been in the media for some time, right? So let's try today to do in this video some kind of a brief, easy explanation of what the Special Economic Zone is and how it will be beneficial to both countries and beneficial to businesses, and also how is it going to be beneficial to you. Okay, so the Special Economic Zone is basically an area called Johor Bahru, right, in general, right? This is, so for those of you who still like, where is the SEZ, how big will it be? This is basically, they're quite clarified now. This is the area for the Special Economic Zone. There's going to be like 9 sub areas, right, basically, but includes basically all of Johor Bahru, right, and also including Iskandar Puteri, right, and also includes Pengerang site and also parts of the Saru. So this area will be called the Special Economic Zone. Now it looks big from one perspective. Of course, this area is about, I think it's roughly 5 times the size of Singapore, right? But I mean, in the context of Malaysia, this is still a fairly, not that big place, right? So this is the Johor Special Economic Zone, and it seems like the government will plan to have like each of these 9 locations, right, will focus on a specific type of industry or business, which they have not elaborated, right? I think they are thinking about like specific incentives, right? If you open within certain of these areas, so they've actually defined some what do you call it, special industries they want to go in these areas. I won't explain that in detail today, but suffice to know is that first thing you must understand, this is the Special Economic Zone, right, which is basically Iskandar, Malaysia, right? For those of you who know the old Iskandar, Malaysia definition, plus a little bit of the Saru and Pengerang site. Okay, so why have a Special Economic Zone? Why does Malaysia and Singapore are doing this? So number one is let's understand the benefits to both countries, right? So number one, why does Singapore need this? Of course, Singapore, as everybody knows, is a high cost country, right? And high cost for doing business, right? Let's be specific, right? So high cost in labor, high cost for water, electricity, right? Internet, high cost for land, right? And basically what Singapore is trying to do via the SEZ is to get more land, right? Usage rights, right? Or the rights to use the land in an efficient manner, right? To get cheaper electricity, cheaper labor, cheaper water, electricity, right? Because in Singapore, for example, right, certain industries are difficult to do or very expensive to do because in Singapore it's too expensive. So by tapping on Johor, right, as some sort of an area to utilize, right, Singapore businesses can get some advantage here of lower costs to be more competitive. So this is why Singapore wants the SEZ. For Malaysia, or specifically Johor, right? Johor, of course, is a state in Malaysia, but Johor is, of course, still what they call that, relatively undeveloped compared to KL, right? So Johor can benefit from capital, right? Can benefit from exposure because Singapore is a very first world exposed country. Lots of businesses come to Singapore first when they come to Southeast Asia. So they come to Singapore, Singapore can direct them to Johor, so Johor can get that exposure, right? And number three, they can also get the technology or skill infusion from Singapore. Singapore is a relatively higher skilled workforce country. So Johor basically is pulling this kind of benefits, tapping from Singapore, right? Money, exposure, technology, or skill set, right? Getting this from Singapore, right? Which is the strong neighbor that they have to the south. So why, of all countries, why Malaysia and Singapore work together? Why is it not Singapore and Indonesia? Why is not Malaysia and Indonesia, right? Why Johor and Singapore specifically? Number one, geography, right? Geography, both of them are geographically close, right? Johor and Singapore actually, if you guys can travel off peak, right? Most parts of Johor to Singapore can be done in under an hour, assuming no traffic. Okay, so actually Singapore and Johor are very, very near to each other, and they are two already land bridges today, right? Number two, Malaysia and Singapore actually today already have a very big trade relationship. I think we are second and third respectively. So for those of you who say, why do business with Malaysia or why do business in Singapore? You guys are missing the point. They are already doing business together, right? Malaysia and Singapore are already trading very, very heavily with each other today. Lots of things in Singapore are produced from Malaysia. A lot of things from Malaysia are exported out through Singapore, right? So already a lot of trade is ongoing today. People who still talk about don't do business in Malaysia, don't do business in Singapore, you guys are totally lost. You don't know what you're talking about. The already very, very heavy trade is ongoing, right? So it's time to push it even further. And number three, Malaysia and Singapore are culturally very similar. Means both countries are almost the same, right? Culturally the same. So they got Malay, Chinese, Indian. We also got Malay, Chinese, Indian. Singapore can speak English. Malaysia also can speak a lot of English actually, right? I'm Malaysian, I can speak English, right? So for those of you who like to laugh about this topic, right? We have similar foods, similar culture, similar songs, similar languages, similar legal system, right? And we've known each other for many, many years. So the relationship is quite close. So it's only very natural that if you want to do it SEZ, right? We do this SEZ in Johor, which is the closest point between Singapore and Malaysia. Okay, so let's move on. So what can we expect? So now there's an SEZ, right? Both countries signed. So we're going to do this. What can we expect? And what has already happened so far? So number one, there will be incentives. This will usually be in taxes, right? Minimal tax or zero tax for certain types of businesses or employees, right? If you come and work in SEZ, you may get certain lower income tax, but you must operate in the SEZ, which is within this Johor, Singapore SEZ. You come here, right? You can get these incentives, right? Number two is faster human clearance. We've already seen some of this happen. Like for example, Singapore today, right? You can use QR code when you cross the border by car. I think by bus also they have just started. Malaysia app has also been finalized for QR code. That will also be happening soon, where you can cross the border Malaysia, Singapore using a QR code via app only, right? And there will also be other things like the Malaysia My Second Home. This is more for retirees, right? Who want to come and live in Malaysia. There are also other types of employment visas or like for people who want to work in Johor, right? Of course, physical faster clearance via things like MRT, the RTS, right, which I talk a lot about, which is the MRT linking from Woodlands to Johor Bahru. This will move 10,000 people per hour per direction, right? That's also a faster human clearance, which will solve one of the bigger problems, which is the massive traffic jam that we always get almost every day, almost all day, right, between Johor and Singapore today. So all these things are part about faster human clearance. There will be more things we don't know. Maybe got third bridge, maybe got high-speed rail. All this hasn't really been confirmed, but faster human clearance is definitely on it. Number three, free flow of goods, right? Like for example, I don't know if you're aware, nowadays if you are a lorry carrying goods clearing from Johor to Singapore, nowadays there's only one form to fill instead of two, right? They sort of merge the customs forms together, right? This is only applicable if you know about this topic in the first place. If you don't know, you may not know. And there may be certain duty-free zones for you to manufacture where you don't pay import taxes. This will be held in the Johor side, right? This is a bit manufacturing related, right? And the fourth part is industry collaboration. So the Malaysia government will form a one-stop center, right? This one-stop center to solve all the business queries for those of you who want to get licensing, approvals done. So Malaysia will set up a one-stop center for all the businesses to deal with. This is for the SEZ. And talent management, because we all need good workers, right? So a lot of this will be focused on vocational workers, as well as working in ITE in Singapore to create the workers that's needed for the SEZ. So these are the things that I've talked about. Actually, all these points which I mentioned here are actually mentioned in the Ministry of Trade Industry Singapore press release. It's also mentioned on the Malaysia site, PMX office press release. So all this you can find online if you go and visit the Malaysia government or the Singapore government press release regarding the special economic zone, right? So I've done this in a chart format, easier for you to understand. So are there any targets? Is there anything that this SEZ aims to achieve? So I think there's a vision, right, created by both governments. They mentioned this, to have 50 projects in 5 years, 100 projects in 10 years. So I think there's a interesting definition of project. What is a project? We will talk about that later. To create 20,000 skilled jobs on both sides of the countries, right? And look at it as two countries working together as a team. That means both Singapore and Malaysia attracting investments together, right? And looking at the SEZ as a joint ownership between Singapore and Malaysia government, rather than just this belongs to Singapore or this belongs to Malaysia, right? There's going to be some kind of joint ownership over this SEZ concept, right? So that businesses operating in Singapore can also have a joint ownership over the SEZ usage, right? Rights of the business. Okay, so I think that's interesting. We'll talk about the 50 projects and 100 projects later. What does that mean, right? So, and if you can see this, right, on Singapore side, a lot of the businesses have taken this SEZ very positively, right? SBF did a what do you call it, a survey. This was done, I think, in July last year, right? And actually, over 90% of businesses in Singapore via SPF through the survey say they're very interested to find out more. And actually, this has been ongoing for a while. Actually, for those of you who don't know, a lot of businesses have already been sort of expanding and migrating to Johor, especially in manufacturing. This has been happening for a long time. Not everything appears in the media. If you watch my old presentations, even 10, 15 years ago, this thing has been going on for a long time, right? I think if you are in the property industry or in industrial property in Johor, you'll be very aware that the industrial property market is very hot right now. A lot of data centers, a lot of industry, right? I just want to show you one slide, which is my next slide. This is actually from Edge Singapore, the Edge Singapore. Singapore headquartered SP Manufacturing expands into Johor with new facility and acquisition. Now, this was happened on 26th of December, just after Christmas. Now, this news, I think, didn't enter mainstream media. It didn't appear on Straits Times. It didn't appear on Channel News Asia. It didn't appear in Today, right? This one appeared on HPROP. HPROP probably a more business newspaper. But this is ongoing for some time. There's a lot of this happening. Not all of it always appears in the news, right? Especially in headline news. But it happens very often where Singapore businesses are doing things in Johor which are actually too expensive to do in Malaysia. It's a lot more cost effective to do in Singapore, in Johor, right? So who's the beneficiaries? Okay, so yeah, businesses are and if you're a boss or a business owner, right? It makes a lot of sense. I'm also talking to one guy, right? He has a factory in Mandai today, right? It's not big enough. He wants to expand into Johor, right? Looking for a factory in Johor as well. So I'm even myself, right? I'm not normally an industrial property agent, right? But even I get queries for industrial businesses want to expand into Johor. So what's the difference this time? So some of you may ask me, Ryan, this one in Iskandar, Malaysia, what's the difference? Because some of you may be from the time when Iskandar, Malaysia happened, I think over 10 years ago. What's the difference this time? Haven't we heard this story before, right? What would be different to make this successful? So I think number one is this time you see a lot more involvement from the Singapore government. Singapore government and Malaysia government, they have introduced funds, right, to help projects move forward. So what's this projects, right? The focus on projects. So projects means specific business initiatives, right? If a company like, for example, Dyson, right, or for a company, example, Old Chang Kee, they want to do something specific in Johor, Singapore government have a fund to help this project happen. So that's what we mean by projects, specific business or industrial or manufacturing projects, right? If a hospital, any business, right, I think we define it as a project, right? And the Malaysian government have a fund, right, to help do the infrastructure if needed for it, right? And Singapore have the fund to help the company do the expansion needed for it if required, right? So there's a fund both on the Singapore government side and the Malaysian government side. This has never been seen before in Iskandar, Malaysia. So now there's a specific fund for this purpose, which I think is very interesting. I said focus on projects, right? So everything is there's a real P&L to it, right? We're not doing things for fun. There's already a not build and then people come, right? It's an investment come, then we've put the funds and incentives to support that investment, right? So I think that's interesting. And they have also spoken about quarterly committee meetings. I think previously maybe they didn't meet quarterly. So now both the Malaysia and Singapore governments on this SEZ, right, will meet quarterly to discuss. And I think there'll be more direction coming from Singapore government as well. So Singapore government will give a lot of input on how this SEZ proposal should be run. So I think we will hear more details in 2025 because I think it's quite obvious on the announcement on the day on 7 8 January that a lot of details were not announced. I think we were hoping for more details, but I think most of you who watched the video also felt that there's not much details, right? So I think we expect more details to come out later this year as there are specific projects coming, right? And the incentives may be geared towards those projects that were pushed out. So how do you benefit and who benefits from the special economic zone? I think the first person or the first parties to benefit are the business owners themselves because they are the direct beneficiaries, right? We're talking about tax incentives and new ways to do business better, right? So they will be the first people in line that you're going to benefit from it. So the first movers, if you ask me, typically is real estate, construction, banks, right? These are the people who get things started, right? For all businesses, you need land, you need property, you need financing. So these are and normally the real estate guys and the banks are the first connectors to make deals happen, right? Subsequent, the first industries that will actually benefit would probably be anything serving retirees, right? Because retirees are the ones that, especially from Singapore, right, they will see a lot of benefits from that. And services, especially in healthcare, tourism, education, they are the next in line to benefit as some of this integration happens. And longer term beneficiaries, of course, be manufacturing. If you ask me, as the factories are set up and their processes get smooth, they will enjoy the cost benefits and capital injection, right? And of course, telco companies as well, longer term as well. So this is my opinion. And I think interesting bit that was shared by the Malaysian economic minister, Rafizi Ramli, is that it's possible that the Johor Singapore SEZ will allow JB to rival Klang Valley in terms of the size in maybe 10 years' time. I think that makes a lot of sense because KL today, if you notice, one thing that KL has compared to Singapore, because KL is the capital, so a lot of businesses and industries, when they come to Malaysia, they go to KL first, right? The first office to set up will always be in the capital in KL. But with the SEZ, it is very likely that a lot of new industries and businesses may end up opening in JB as well. Or maybe JB will be the first office in Malaysia because of the pull in via Singapore instead of direct go to KL, come down, right? So that's an interesting part. And I think we will see business activity in Johor, push up a lot in the next 5-10 years, right? As the SEZ benefits start to trickle down into the economy. So I think that is my sharing today for the special economic zone. I hope that was useful to you, right? If you like my content, do like, share, and subscribe. Okay. Feel free to contact me at my Singapore number 8126-1626 if you want to discuss more. And of course, if you guys have any comments or questions about the special economic zone, feel free to leave it in my channel below, YouTube channel below, and I will be sure to reply you. I think it's an interesting topic, the special economic zone is. If you guys are business owners in Singapore looking to expand into Malaysia, I think you already see things like, I think Maybank and UOB already, and OCBC in Singapore already set up specific trade desk to help businesses to do it. The other party to talk to is, of course, SPF itself, Singapore Business Federation. They're also setting up a certain kind of place where you can inquire on how you want to take advantage of the Johor Special Economic Zone. So I think this time we seem a lot more organized in doing this, right? It's a interesting thing and interesting time and fun time to be in Johor, Singapore right now. Okay, I hope that was useful. Thank you very much. Do like, share, subscribe to this video. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.